Hi there, it's October the 25th, and today we are continuing our journey through the prophecies of Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu in Hebrew, meaning the Lord appoints, the Lord establishes, and we're reading today chapters 48 and chapter 49 to verse 22. This is continuing the series of words against various nations. Jeremiah has finished his prophesying for the moment against Judah and against Israel, and he's now focusing on the surrounding nations. So we saw that he spoke against Egypt, he's spoken against the Philistines. Now at the beginning of chapter 48, he speaks a word against Moab. Now Moab is the nation, the area that is to the southeast of the Dead Sea, one of Judah's neighbours. And basically Jeremiah says, just as Judah has been destroyed, so Moab is going to face destruction as well. And because she's trusted in her works and her treasures, says Jeremiah, she's trusted in the things she's done and also in her wealth. And also because she has worshipped the idol Chemosh, and Chemosh is the idol of the Moabites that they have worshipped, but God is going to bring judgment against them. And they are going to be as ashamed of the idol Chemosh as Israel was, the northern kingdom was, of the calf at Bethel, and obviously also at Dan as well. And so there's going to come a shame because their idols, their non-gods, have not responded. Moab, says Jeremiah, is finished. And part of the judgment coming against them is because they derided Israel. It goes back many times, many years to before the time of the entrance of Israel into the Promised Land, when Moab refused to help Israel. But God says, because of your idolatry, Moab is going to be made to cease and destruction is coming. But right in the very last verse of chapter 48, there's an amazing promise that there will be a return. As with Judah and Israel, God will turn things around. There will be a coming home promised for Moab. And then in chapter 49, first of all, Jeremiah speaks about Ammon, and Ammon is the kingdom which is north of Moab and which is to the east of the Jordan. It's actually in the area of modern-day Jordan. The main territory of Ammon, the capital was at Rabbah, which is actually modern-day Amman, the capital of Jordan. And Jeremiah says that they have taken part of Israel's inheritance. It says, hasn't Israel got sons who should be inheriting the land? But actually Ammon has taken what belonged to Israel in taking Gad into its territory. And therefore Rabbah, the city of Ammon, will be destroyed, and therefore fear will come upon them. But again, as with Moab, there's a promise also of a return. There's a promise of a coming back. God leaves space for there to be a change. But this is not going to go well for Ammon. And then in verse 7, the Lord moves on to the word through Jeremiah against Edom or Esau. Edom is another word for Esau, the old brother of Jacob, and Edom's territory is to the south of that of Judah, going down towards the desert, going down towards the Red Sea. And again, it's the same promise, saying that things are going to be left bare there. It's a very dry area anyway, a very desert area, but there's going to be no possibility of sowing seed. There's going to be no possibility of harvesting crops. Their chief city, Bozrah, is going to be left desolate. And those who dwell in the rocks, high in the rocks and the cliffs, because in that part of the country there's rocks and cliffs where people were living. And it says, you who live high up in the rocks are going to be brought down. And God is going to hover over you, is going to be hovering over you, but to make sure that you don't prosper. But again, there's still prospects for return. It's an amazing promise that even though there's this destruction coming, even though the Babylonians are going to sweep through this area, God still promises redemption to come. And this is the nature of our God. God is a God who loves return. In fact, in the daily prayer, or the daily Jewish prayer, the Amidah, the standing prayer, there is a blessing of God. It says, who desires, who wants teshuvah, who wants return, who wants homecoming. There's always a place, even in the midst of God's judgment, even in the midst of the chastising and the chastening, God will always leave space for coming home. Perhaps we today need to think about our turning again to God. There's always space for turning to Him. There's always space for coming home. Maybe we need to ask again ourselves today, how do I need to turn towards home again? What do I need to turn away from so that I can turn towards home, towards my Father, towards God, and come back and say, Father, I've sinned against you and against heaven, but I thank you that you call me back and you leave space for me to come home. Have a very good October 25th.